You've probably seen news articles talking about this. Wired earphones are coming back. Look, this celebrity is wearing wired earphones. Wired earphones are the new in thing now. And the response that I've been seeing within our tiny little corner of the internet has been largely positive. A lot of people love the fact that wired is gaining traction and we're finally getting some level of increased attention, if you will. But here's the thing. This trend, wired earphones being the new boom in the market, has absolutely nothing to do with us, the hobbyists, the enthusiasts, the audiophiles. People are not buying wired earphones because they are better, even though they can be, but rather for much more shallow reasons. I am Crinacle, and today I'll be talking about the weird performative world of wired earphones. Before I get into it, this may be your first time coming into my humble little channel, so I think a self-introduction is apt. So hello, my name is Crinacle. I currently run and maintain the world's largest public database of headphone and earphone measurements. I used to be a reviewer. I collaborated with some brands to make some earphones. And more recently, I have retired. I have my own audio store, Hangout.audio, as well as my own audio brand, crinacle, where we actually tune and manufacture our own product. So I'm in an interesting space where yes, I can give you insight on products themselves, but also at the same time on the retail as well as the manufacturing side of the industry. Self-introductions aside, let's talk about this phenomenon. Wired earphones are coming back. And yes, there is some legitimacy to this claim. So based on what I have read around the internet, a lot of them base their statements on research from Sakana, however you want to pronounce it. Sakana is a market research firm, and they have claimed that for 5 years, wired earphones and wired headphone sales were declining year on year. Then in 2025, they found out that wired earphones did get a boost in sales for the very first time, plus 3%. Then they claimed that in the first 6 weeks of 2026, there was a 20% increase in wired earphone sales. I don't think they've actually published the data. All I got was an article from Ben Arnold, so I don't know how legitimate this data is, but this was the article that was cited by so many news articles at this point. And if you look into the Google search console, you would see that the terms wired earphones and wired headphones have increased 60 to 90% year on year. Couple that with paparazzi photos of celebrities rocking basic Apple AirPods, for example, Drake, Zendaya, and even Zoe Kravitz proclaiming her love for wired earphones. So it's no secret that at this point, a lot of people do get the sentiment that yes, wired earphones is finally gaining the traction after, I would say, a decade of wireless earbud dominance. So before we get any further into the new era of wired earphones, I guess we have to establish the context. How do we actually get to this point where wireless earbuds were considered the de facto default for most people? Some of you would probably remember the tragic year of 2016, where Apple, in a bold move, removed the headphone jack from the iPhone. And some of you would also remember that at the time, many brands made fun of Apple for that decision. They said, oh, they made a stupid choice. Who would remove such an important feature in any phone? But you know, Apple being Apple, what happened next was that even though all the brands made fun of them for doing it, they did it themselves. And from then on, any premium flagship smartphone will never have a headphone jack ever again. But we know Apple is smart. By removing the headphone jack, they have also created a new category of product, the wireless earbud. Well, not really created it, but rather massively popularized and legitimized it. The Apple AirPods quickly became one of, if not the best-selling Apple accessory ever created. It is so successful that there are bar charts comparing the Apple AirPods as if they were a company comparable in revenue to some of the biggest tech companies on Earth. So how big, you may ask? Well, by current estimates, we're looking at over $20 billion in revenue annually. And if Apple, a single brand can achieve this kind of revenue, you can imagine the total market size of the wireless buds market as a whole. After roughly a decade, wireless earbuds are now mainstream. Which kind of brings me to my first point. So why is it that now wired earphones are starting to boom once again? Clearly, with the rise of the wireless bud market, the wired earphones market is slowly getting pushed out and kind of left for dead. I'm going to talk about the reasons why people are actively choosing wired earphones over wireless buds in order of importance. And the main reason why, in my opinion, is not the fact that it's more practical or even that it's a superior product overall, but rather the fact that wireless earbuds are now mainstream. This is kind of talking about the counterculture movement of many societies. If you want to stand out amongst a crowd, you have to do something that goes against the grain. Within this niche of audio, that means that within an ocean of people wearing wireless earbuds, standing out means wearing something that comes with a tangly wire. This is also kind of reflective of the original hipster culture movement that emphasized anti-consumerism as well as rebelling against the capitalist aesthetic, which, as you know, the white stem kind of represents. And in today's world, with all the talks about AI, cloud, blockchain, or whatever, there is a very distinct sense that there is also some digital fatigue amongst the younger side of the crowd. There's kind of this sense that we don't want to always talk about tech. We don't want to keep chasing the trends, the newest model, the newest product, and kind of just return to monkey, if you will. In this way, the wired earphone kind of encapsulates this philosophy without breaking the bank, because a lot of these cheap earbuds or even just the basic Apple EarPods, very affordable. But that also brings me to a more important point of mine, and that is this boom. This increase in wired earphone sales is not about buying a better product, but more about showing the fact that you are not caring, which is very much a current gen thing. People are buying very cheap, very basic earbuds and not the high quality in-ear monitors that I and many other people within this niche of the enthusiast hobbyist space are trying to push forward. Which is why I say, because of this very point, where the emotional connection is not about the performance of the earbuds or earphones themselves, but rather the aesthetics that it's trying to represent, this means that this movement, this boom, again, has absolutely nothing to do with us. Celebrate it however you want. Doesn't really affect us in any way. That is really the mindset, but really there's still other reasons why people would go with wired earbuds or earphones compared to the wireless form. And the second most important point that I think is more relevant would be on practicality. Yes, I acknowledge wireless earbuds are indeed convenient, but there are still a few things that you still have to think about whenever you use them. For example, the fact that it has a battery, which means that you have to regularly charge them. You don't charge them, they're useless. Unlike a wired earphone where you just need a jack or a dongle, and that's it, you could just use them. And the fact that it has a battery means that there will be battery degradation. There is no such thing as a wireless earbud that would have the same charge after 2, 3, 4 years of use. And the nature of such devices, where they have to be extremely slim and extremely ergonomic, means that they're extremely hard to repair or even just swap the battery out. So there is no longevity whatsoever in this class of product, which means that after 2 years, maybe even less, you're gonna have basically e-waste in your hands. Contrast this with wired earphones, where at the Hangout, we do have a pair of earphones that were manufactured in 2009, the Ultimate Ears Super 5.5 EB. And it still works. And that does bring me to my next point on why certain people would want to switch from wireless to wired, and that is environmental concern. Because yes, so wireless earbuds die very quickly. They're not going to last you more than 5 years, I would assume. And that means you are going to replace your wireless earbuds year on year best case scenario, maybe every 2 years. And whenever you dispose of a wireless earbuds, there is actually significant waste. You have plastic as well as rare earth metals that are simply gone the moment you just throw it down the chute. So for that reason, I do understand the philosophy. Buy wired if you want to kind of protect the climate a little bit better, reduce your waste, reduce, reuse, recycle. But at the same time, wired earphones are actually not that much better because of the fact that the cables themselves are the biggest failure point. And again, I'm talking about the cheap earbuds that people are buying because of this trend, which usually comes with non-detachable cables, which means that once your cable breaks, usually means that you're not going to repair them and you just throw them out and buy a new one. So e-waste wise, it's not exactly trading one bad thing for a good thing, but rather trading one bad thing for a slightly less worse thing. Of course, at this point, I would recommend people buy earphones with detachable cables, which means that if you do get a common failure point in the cable, you can just simply replace one small part of the bigger hole. That does reduce e-waste. You don't have to replace the whole thing and might be cheaper in the long run because cables cost like what, 20 bucks maybe. And finally, the reason why people switch to wired earphones in my ideal world would be because of raw performance. Here's where I have to make the distinction between earbuds and in-ears. Earbuds simply sit outside of the ear and doesn't really seal around the ear. Not very isolating, doesn't block you from the outside noise. In-ears, on the other hand, usually come with silicone ear tips. They seal around the ear. You get more bass response and sounds better in general. So instead of the terrible, cheap, shitty earbuds, you could probably get a higher quality in-ear instead. That's what I recommend. Sounds better, arguably more durable as well, because most of them, nowadays at least, come with detachable cables. Yes, they do cost more sometimes, but they do come with better quality drivers, better build quality, and of course, zero latency by the fact that they don't use a wireless connection. Now, I don't want to say that all wired earphones are always better than all wireless earphones because that's simply not true. There are really good wireless earphones and very thoughtfully engineered wireless earphones at that. Sometimes it's also just a show of competency where you have an intentionally complicated analog design inside a wired earphone and then kind of appreciate that, similar to a way that how you would appreciate a mechanical watch, even though timekeeping wise it's worse than quartz. Now this is the main reason why we in the audio enthusiast community prefer wired earphones. They are generally better products, they are better built, they are clearly not geared towards a much more mainstream audience, and we appreciate the little nuances that some of the higher end or even the lower end stuff can bring to the table. But clearly, this is not the reason for the recent boom of wired earphone sales, majority of which is because of cheap wired earbuds, a category that we do not care about. And lastly, really right at the bottom of the reasons why someone would switch to wired would be the health concerns, I guess, because there is the belief that, oh, because there is wireless signals, that somehow putting them next to your brain would result in some kind of cancer happening inside your head. Here is where I have to reiterate that Bluetooth and even Wi-Fi signals are not harmful to you. There's a difference between the microwave and the Wi-Fi. For one thing, everything Bluetooth and everything Wi-Fi is non-ionizing RF signals. What that means is they don't do shit to you. So I get it. It does sound intuitive. Oh, electronic devices right next to my head must be dangerous. But at the same time, literally zero research supports that. Now, here's a point where I go against the grain that is also going against the grain. Wireless earphones are actually pretty good. Unlike a lot of audio enthusiasts who would tell you that wired is unequivocally better than wireless, I would tell you, well, not the opposite, but more of a nuanced discussion that wireless can be better than wired. Again, it is simply more convenient. Yes, there's a battery that you need to remember to charge, but once it's all charged, it's so easy to just pop it open, plug it into your ears, and that's it. No need to fumble around for a dongle, just simply plug and play. Unlike wired earphones, you also get access to stuff like active noise cancelling, which is superior across the board to traditional passive isolation. Of course, you still need great passive isolation because ANC doesn't target high frequencies, but in terms of low frequency attenuation, wireless are still kings. And from a more technical engineering standpoint, you can use DSP to tune your wireless earbuds. That means they're using kind of software to tune them on a digital level rather than on an analog level. What that means is that you can be extremely precise and accurate with the way that you tune your earphone. You don't have to mess around with the housings, you don't have to use dampeners. All you have to do is just tell the software, hey, bring this region down, and it just does it. And that is my video essay. For those of you who are celebrating about the boom in the wired earphones market, believe me, I too wanted it to be kind of because people are appreciating a better product. But unfortunately, the boom in the wired earphone space right now is more due to the aesthetics rather than the audio. And the irony is not lost on me. The wired market right now is completely dominated by cheap, basically disposable earbuds that have basically no relevance whatsoever to the hi-fi enthusiast market. At the end of the day, I hope that this boom in the wired earphones market would be kind of the beginning of people slowly starting to appreciate sound. But at the same time, I also kind of acknowledge that over the years, we have been and probably will forever be a niche within a niche. Thank you for listening to an old man ramble for God knows how many minutes. Here are all of your names who have subscribed to the $20 tier on my Patreon. And for those who have subscribed to my $30 tier, allow me to speak out your beautiful names: crinacle, Andrew, Like Pizza, Seraphim, and Daryl. I thank you all. This is an interesting topic for me. A lot of strangers have been asking me about my thoughts on the boom, so to speak, and my initial reaction was, huh? But anyways, see you guys next week, and don't die. Fuck off.